Hi guys, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. My idea for the next episode was to talk about finding our life's purpose. And the short answer is I have no idea. But this is what I think is true for me. And I just wanted to volunteer it as ideas if you feel like you're struggling with this. I think the simple answer is focusing on how you feel. We get these ideas about what we think we want, and then the reality turns out feeling completely different. So I really think it's just about checking in with yourself and seeing how something feels, or testing something out and seeing how it feels. I think some people just know in their bones what they're supposed to be doing. And we feel like if we don't know it in our bones, like that person, then there's something wrong with us, or we just feel lost. And I don't want people to feel lost. Some people do know it in their bones. I think those people are very in touch with who they are, and they've been given a very different message than INFJs and INFPs have been given, which is that our gifts are not valued. And like our feelings, I think growing up were very invalidated a lot of the time, and our gifts were not valued a lot of the time. And I think that's where some of the division is between people who know what they're supposed to be doing and people who don't. So I just want to kind of draw some attention to that. The other thing I wanted to say was humans are terrible at knowing what will make us happy. I took, there's a free happiness course, I want to say by Yale. I hope I'm getting that right. And they talk about some of the studies around this, but humans have no idea what they really want. Like, we think we want money and good grades and a perfect body, and they've done these studies that show when we get those things, it actually doesn't make us happier. So just being aware of that too, I think helps. I've struggled with this a lot. For a long time, I thought I wanted to be like a professional landscape photographer, and I saw all these other people like traveling the country in vans, just like waking up in these beautiful landscapes and taking pictures, and they had all these followers on social media, and that's what I thought I wanted. And I went after it for a while. I traveled cross country in a van. I ended up buying a camper van, and it was an awesome experience. I don't regret any of it. I saw some amazing places, but it was also exhausting, and I think it took away from the enjoyment of just being there, feeling like I had to get the perfect picture, and then I had to promote that picture and find a way to sell that picture and monetize this beautiful place. So my problem is, like, I think I want something, but then I don't really like the reality, and I don't really know that until I try it, and I think that's okay. I think just being honest with yourself about, oh, I actually don't like this, and not pushing yourself to do it anyway once you figure that out. So instead of thinking we know what makes us happy, or assuming we know what's going to make us happy, I think maybe the question can be, figuring out what makes us happy. Maybe that's our job, is to just figure out what makes us happy with no expectations. There's this concept in shamanism and druidry that to help the world and to help other people, you have to help yourself. All the healing starts with you. And as empaths, we're always like absorbing other people. Everyone else's emotions are just like weighing on us like this boulder. And I think once you start healing yourself and learning to defend yourself and speak up and practice boundaries, then that energy kind of moves in the opposite direction. Instead of like all these people's stuff piling onto you, then your healing energy can kind of like move outward instead of taking all this stuff in. And another thing about, the people who feel it in their bones, I think the problem with us is we've forgotten who we are. We've just kind of learned to be quiet and to not be authentic, weird, and to just like pretend that we're normal. I mean, I don't say weird as like a bad thing. I say it as a good thing. We've learned to just numb ourselves and just kind of like try to fit in and be these chameleons. And we've been doing it for so long, we kind of forgot who we are. So I think figuring out what you're supposed to do starts with remembering who you are. And that's hard to do. I think once you get started, it kind of becomes an addiction, though. It's just getting started that's hard, and it can be painful to... Healing is painful sometimes. But I think it also brings joy in equal measure. So I think it's worth it. As far as like how to start doing that, I think for me the biggest thing has been finding a coach who's also an INFJ. And I found her through reading books about INFJs. Therapy helped me too. If that doesn't feel comfortable or you don't have access to those kinds of things, or even if you do, I think writing helps also. Writing helps a lot, journaling, and a lot of people struggle with like knowing what to write. Jacob Nordby has a journaling prompt. It's really simple. It's just 4 questions that you start with every day. It's really quick. It's really simple. It's kind of like a fill in the blank type of deal. So if you're wanting to write and you don't know how to get started, I would go find his website, Jacob Nordby, and somewhere on there there's going to be an opt-in for his journaling prompts. Right now I also have a Facebook group where I post prompts every day. And you can get that by going to jennydobson.com/group. And yeah, I think writing is a great place to start too. I'm just checking my notes here. Bear with me. Another thing is, I think just looking at the things that we think we want as clues and hints and not taking them so literally. Just looking at them as like ingredients. So like, I wanted to be traveling and in these beautiful landscapes. Well, maybe that's not supposed to be my job. Maybe I can start with like filling my house with plants and like, nature, like rocks and pretty rocks and nice plants. And I'm actually finding that travel feels better when I have a home base. Because I'm very sensitive and I get overwhelmed very easily. Traveling feels a lot more I thought I could save all this money by traveling full time rather than paying rent somewhere. That's what like all these digital nomads tout all the time. But I found out that I feel like I have more freedom when I have a home base. It's just like my nervous system is calmer that way, and then I can plan trips easier because my nervous system is calm. I'm not trying to figure out where I'm going to sleep that night. Or, like maybe I just want to take cool pictures for my blog posts. Or, maybe it means I want to go camping more often. So just using the things that we think we want as clues and ingredients, and not turning them into like the most extreme version of that, like simplifying them into things that are easy to obtain. And it's not, I don't feel like I'm settling that way. I feel happier kind of miniaturizing everything. It doesn't feel like settling to me. It feels like more in balance. Another thing is, I think, at least for me, I'll think that I'm passionate about something, and then I get completely burnt out on it. And I'm constantly like rotating what I think I'm passionate about. And I think that comes from, I want everything to be perfect and done and ready to go before I share it. And it's like I've done the entire project in my mind before I even start. Like I have the whole strategy, and it becomes huge and overwhelming. And it just like kills my desire to even do it. Like I've already done it in my head. Now I'm exhausted, and I don't want to do it in reality. So again, just like making things small and kind of like sharing them as you're creating things. Like let it grow in public instead of like trying to grow the whole thing privately and then like share it when it's done. There's like no such thing as done. So I love to think about things as a garden. So you're just gardening and you're letting people walk by and look at the garden and see what's growing, instead of like waiting till you have a whole crop all ready to go. That keeps your motivation going. Like hack my therapist told me for depression is to just complete a task. Just make all your tasks as easy as you can. Just get something small done. Just make it really easy. Make a task that's really simple and do it. Completing a task makes you feel good. So if you have this enormous task that's going to take days or weeks or months or years to complete, that just poisons the energy around it. So just like making the little bits and pieces the task and then sharing those. That way you can start to build an audience as you're going. That's going to give you motivation. It's going to give you feedback. It's going to show you what people need. Instead of just trying to like guess what you can sell that people are going to like, you can kind of co-create with them. And another thing I think is like focusing on feelings rather than like literal things. Like another thing I do is like I'll copycat people. I'll be like, oh, I really like that person's life. I want to analyze their entire business model so I can make a similar business model. I think it's good to like, I think that's a good way to learn about all the tools that are out there and all the systems that are out there. But when you're finally ready to do your thing, I think it's less helpful. I think the more important thing is to like focus on the feelings. Like, what feeling are they giving me that I'm so attached to? And trying to just like bottle that feeling somehow. And focusing less on like what they're literally doing. I know that sounds really abstract, and I don't have a better way to explain it right now. I think another message we get about like our life's purpose is there's like this message that like if we really wanted it, then we could get it done. If we really wanted it, we could work on it all day and not get burned out. And that's really invalidating, and I don't think that's true. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and it's stifling. What we need is less pressure to get things done. I think some people, maybe that pressure works, putting pressure on themselves work. For us, it does not work. If you're thinking of things in a way that puts pressure on you, just try to kind of change your thinking in a way that just feels like freedom and like there's no pressure. Another thing that they talked about in the happiness course was intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, and I think that's another thing to look for too. So extrinsic motivation is like, I want to look good when other people see me, or I want good grades so I can get into a good college and get a good job. Intrinsic motivation would be like, well, I want to learn, not because of the grades, but because I want the knowledge, or I want to be in shape because I want my body to feel good. So those are examples of like extrinsic versus intrinsic, and you really lose your motivation with extrinsic things. The energy starts to feel really negative. You feel like down on yourself when you're like, oh, now I have to go be in front of these people and I'm not going to look the way I want to look. It kind of like looks at what's wrong or what you didn't do instead of what you're doing right. Intrinsic, it's like, yeah, there's no shame, there's no guilt. It's just like, I want to learn and I want to take care of my body just for that alone. And so if you're trying to decide like what it is you want to do, that's another thing you could look at is like, what's intrinsically motivating versus what's extrinsic. Another thing, INFJs and INFPs, we want our work to feel meaningful. And INFJs, I think, we want to make people feel things. And INFPs, I think, want to express their own feelings. So that might be another clue that helps you. I think one way for both personalities to do that is to tell stories. A lot of INFJs and INFPs are writers, but there are a lot of other ways to tell stories besides just writing. And another idea is, okay, sorry. Had to cut there for a second. So we want to make people feel things. Another thing that I thought was interesting that Pat Flynn has talked about, Pat Flynn, his brand is Smart Passive Income. But when he was in architecture school, it might have been for his LEED certification, his green building certification, he used a website just to keep all his notes organized, because blogs they let you add categories and they let you add tags, so it's really easy to like add labels to things and categorize them on a website that has a blog. So when he was studying, he had a website that he just used for taking notes, and kind of by accident it ended up getting all this traffic. So that's another thing, is just like not choosing your destination, just being on the journey and kind of documenting that journey on a website where people can publicly find it, if that feels comfortable to you, was another idea that I had. So as far as just like, you know, the destination would be like saying, I want to be a photographer. Whereas the journey would just be like, photography seems interesting to me. Do I feel like taking pictures today? And see if you feel like a yes or a no. And you can just try it, just say like, I'm going to spend one Saturday taking pictures and I'm going to see how it feels. Instead of like making this whole business plan around it, just treating things like an experiment. And then, while you're out taking pictures, you might notice that you really like taking pictures of flowers more than anything else. And then kind of go down that rabbit hole. Like, okay, I'm really drawn to flowers. Let me explore flowers some more. Maybe that takes you out of photography into something else. Or maybe there's something about taking pictures of flowers. Just acknowledging that we don't know what we want. We don't know what's going to make us happy. We think we know what we want, but use what you think you want as clues to just explore. And then you can kind of document that on a website, and your audience is kind of going to point you to your niche for you. As you're, talking about what's interesting to you, doing what's interesting to you, you're just kind of organically over time going to hone in on something, or your audience is really going to connect with something. So I don't think it's about knowing your niche in the beginning. I think it's about the process of finding your niche. As you're finding it, if you're doing it in like a public arena, your audience is going to find you and they're going to grow with you. And then by the time you have your thing figured out, you're already going to have an audience built in. When I worked in marketing, we would do these ad campaigns on Facebook, and how the campaigns would run we would start out the beginning of the month running a brand awareness campaign, which is just advertising videos where you're not trying to sell something, you're just trying to see who's gonna watch your video. And then later in the month, we would run an ad to sell something, but we would target the people who had already watched the video. So you can kind of think of your purpose as the same way. Like, you don't know what you're gonna be selling at the end of the month, or the end of the year, or however long it takes. Right now, you're just showing the world what you're interested in and seeing who connects with you. It's like an ad campaign in real life. And it doesn't have to be salesy. You're not trying to get people to buy things right now. And that money is more of a extrinsic motivator anyway. The intrinsic motivator is just the lifestyle that you want to have, that money can give you. We deserve to have money. We deserve to have nice things. There's this idea that like money is evil. And I think it's good to practice thinking about money as a good thing. But not really worrying about how you're going to monetize what's valuable to you in the beginning either. And then the last thing I was going to say is just, we try to choose things that we think are going to feel good, like all this recognition and making all this money and traveling, like all those things feel good. But I think maybe some of our purposes can be, what's hard? What are we motivated to do that's hard and we go there anyway? I don't want people to like choose pain. That's not what I'm trying to say. But just, I think we just naturally sometimes gravitate towards things that are hard. Things that are painful, that are just worth it anyway. And it's like, being a landscape photographer, like that's hard. But that's not why I'm choosing it. I'm choosing it because I think the challenge is worth the reward. I think maybe there's something to, what do you naturally choose that's hard, where it's not even about a reward. It's just because it matters. What do you choose that's hard just because it matters? And I think there might be clues there also. So that's everything I have. It might give you more questions than answer. But I would love to know what you think, so feel free to email me or leave a comment. And I'm always looking for ideas for the next episode. So yeah, if you have anything you want me to go over, let me know, and have a great week, guys. Thanks for listening.